sometimes bad things happen. Kristy Vetter.
Contest master, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Life sucks. Sometimes good things happen. Life sucks, but sometimes good things happen. Those were the words that the instructor said over and over again in my stress management class. What he didn't realize was that every time he said it, he made me more stressed, until I finally got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. So I raised my hand and I said, no, life is good. And sometimes bad things happen. He slowly turned and looked at me and he said, it's semantics. And I said, no, you look for the bad. I look for the good, but I know I have the tools to manage when bad things happen. Life is good, and sometimes bad things happen. He raised his hand and dismissed me with, we'll just agree to disagree. I hadn't thought of that class or those words for many years until the last 6 months, when a series of, but sometimes bad things happen, continued to happen. And then I began to question, is life good or does life suck? And sometimes good things happen. Started in October of 2020. We had to put our dog down after 15 years, and I miss her to this day. Then I had to have rotator cuff surgery, and 2 days after rotator cuff surgery, I found out I had breast cancer. The day before breast cancer surgery, we found out that the company I worked for was being bought out, and that most likely this year I will lose my job. 2 days after breast cancer surgery, I was walking down, well, I tried to walk down the stairs of my deck, and instead I tumbled down them, and with nothing to stop me, I hit the fence post and broke my arm. I spent 3 days in the hospital trying to get the pain under control. Shortly after that, I found out that the cancer was more aggressive than we had realized, and I lost my hair. But that wasn't the worst of it. Last month, on March 9th, my 62-year-old brother fell asleep and never woke up. He had a massive heart attack in the middle of the night. His funeral was on my birthday. What would you think? Does life suck and sometimes good things happen? Or would you think that life is good and sometimes bad things happen? I know in my heart that life is still good. That when those bad things happen, we all have tools that we can use to get us through those times and remind us that life is good. And the first tool is to be grateful. There's a study that shows that if you take 2 minutes a day and come up with 3 things to be grateful for, after 30 days, your mind automatically begins to scan and find those things to be grateful for without really having to think about it. That gratitude gives us more joy. It brings about emotions of optimism and enthusiasm and happiness. But equally as important, there's less bitterness, less envy, less jealousy. Being grateful can help us in those times when we begin to question, is life good? And sometimes bad things happen, and it can get us through and remind us that life is good, even when bad things happen. The second tool that we can all use is to do good for ourselves and for those around us. When we do good, it provides a better mental health state. We live longer. We find good in the people around us, and the best part is, the more good you do, the more you want to do. And the people around you notice, and they want to do more good too. When you begin to question whether life is good and sometimes bad things happen, remember, Do good, and that will remind you the tools that you have when sometimes bad things happen. The last tool is one you probably don't hear about very often, but I want you to wallow. And when I say wallow, I mean I want you to feel the frustration, the pain, the anger when something bad happens. I want you to feel it in your head, in your heart, and in your gut. But I want you to set a time limit. Because when we set that time limit, what it allows us to do is to move on, is to not get stuck in that moment, in that spot. And equally as important, it allows those around you not to get stuck either. So when I say wallow, I mean go all out, but set yourself a time limit. We're all going to have moments where we begin to question, does life suck and sometimes good things happen? Or is life good and sometimes bad things happen? But I want you to focus on being grateful. I want you to focus on doing good for yourself and for others. And I want you to wallow, because it's in those tools and in those moments that when we use them, we remember that sometimes bad things happen, but life really is good. Mr. Contest Chair.